to those senators who are up for re-election in this next cycle, which includes both Joni Ernst and Thom Tillis, that if you're not going to toe the line, you're going to see a primary challenge and you could be in trouble. And we are going to spare no expense or effort to make sure that happens. And that really has to be in the back of the minds of many of these senators as they weigh this responsibility of advise and consent and the co-equal branch of government that the Senate is. And this is just kind of, in many ways, a foreshadowing of what we could potentially see as a showdown between Senate Republicans and the White House throughout the course of the next 2 years. This is basically setting the stage to determine whether or not these Senate Republicans have the backbone to stand up to Donald Trump when he makes a decision that they don't necessarily like. And it is fair to say that Pete Hegseth, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Matt Gaetz, who is no longer the Attorney General nominee. Under normal circumstances, these are the kind of nominees that would have a difficult time being confirmed under any circumstance. So it's not a surprise that there is some skepticism among these ranks. And I think the question right now is just how far does Donald Trump himself, how far is he willing to go to exert that pressure? And does he pick and choose between which one of these nominees that he wants to use that political capital on? Because there's no doubt that if he wants, he can make life very difficult for these Republican senators, particularly the ones that are up for re-election. But he also knows that he has to work with them. There's going to be a lot of votes that he's going to need from them because the margins are so close over the next 2 years. If he wants his tax cuts, if he wants funding for this mass deportation program, you go down the line of these massive policy proposals that he has. Does he want to win then, or does he want to win now? And there could be a calculus that's taking place here by Donald Trump where he's seeing just how far he can push them, and that'll tell us how the rest of this will play out, or at least over the first 2 years of this second run at his presidency.
Ryan, I know you hear what I hear, what Jonathan hears, what everyone at this table hears from Republicans privately, which is they don't think that Matt Gaetz was qualified. They don't think Tulsi Gabbard should be anywhere near the country's secrets. They don't think that Pete Hegseth, though they may like him personally, should run a bureaucracy the size of the Department of Defense. And yet none of them will say that publicly, at least as strongly as I just said it there. So what is the calculus for the senators? You talked about what Donald Trump is thinking. How do they weigh this? They have to live in Donald Trump's Washington for the next 4 years, but they also don't believe principally that these people should be running the organizations to which he is going to nominate them. So what is that calculus for some of these senators?
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep in mind, Willie, that these Republican senators want Donald Trump to succeed. These are not, this isn't the Republican Party of 2017, where there was definitely a faction of never Trump Republicans, even if they were quiet, that were hoping behind the scenes that he did not succeed and did not make it through. These Republicans want him to win. And when they go through the advise and consent role here, it's not because they want to trip him up. It's not because they want to make his life difficult. It's because they want him to have the best people around him in these cabinet posts when he takes office on January 20th and beyond. And so what they would like to see happen is behind the scenes, there's a conversation. They talk to the administration. They talk to these Sherpas that are working with these candidates, and they say, you know what? It's just not going to happen. If you go through this confirmation process, it's going to be ugly. We're going to have a hearing where, remember, Democrats get to ask questions. They're going to expose a lot of these issues that have come up in media reports. Your nominees are going to have to deal with all of this, and it's ultimately going to look bad for you. And then at the end of all of it, after this brutal situation, we may have to vote against you and make it look like we're in opposition to you. The other path is, behind the scenes, we quietly talk about how this isn't necessarily the right person for this job for a whole range of reasons. Why don't you find someone else and let that person bow out on their own? That's how it worked with Matt Gaetz, because it was clear that under any circumstance, Matt Gaetz was not going to get the votes. Trump got that message. The question now, and what he's dealing with when it comes to Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and we'll see what happens with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he begins his process next week, is Trump getting that message yet? Are these Republican senators willing to say definitively, there's no way I'm ever going to vote yes for this guy? It's time for you to move on now so you don't go through that whole process. With Hegseth in particular, it seems that Trump feels that he has the charisma and in a public setting, he'll be able to win over some of these senators. And he's willing for him to go through that process and see what happens. May not be the case for all of them, but that's kind of the dynamic that we see playing out, the back and forth between the White House and the senators.
More Morning Joe Weekend after a quick break.
The Real Real, authenticated luxury resale. Thousands of rare, totally unique finds for everyone you love, including yourself.
The Prada Girl, the Hermes collector, the Louis Vuitton obsessed.
The watch connoisseur, the hype beast.
I love Fendi.
Marni, Dries,
Rolex.
vintage Tiffany.
Everything sparkly, plus Gucci, Cartier, Dior, and more.
Over 10,000 new arrivals every day.
All up to 90% off retail.
For you, for them, for all. Love The Real Real.
Shop now and get 20% off at therealreal.com. Terms apply.
Treating schizophrenia without a daily pill may seem impossible. But what if there was a path to treatment just twice a year? It's time for Invega Hafyera, the only long-acting injection that helps continuously control schizophrenia symptoms for up to 6 months with one dose. Before starting, you must be adequately treated with a similar shorter-term injection for at least 4 months. Invega Hafyera is not for everyone. Elderly dementia patients have an increased risk of death or stroke. Call your doctor if you have uncontrollable muscle movements, as these can become permanent. If you have high fever, stiff muscles, confusion, dizziness upon standing, seizures, or increase in prolactin. Other risks include increased cholesterol, weight gain, heart rate, and high blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death. These are not all the serious side effects. Invega Hafyera. Imagine what's ahead when you leave schizophrenia pills behind.
All these years, he's still my everyday hero. He's got prostate cancer now, and Erleada helps keep him going.
Erleada treats prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to testosterone-lowering treatment. In a clinical study, Erleada was shown to help men with prostate cancer live longer. Erleada helps lower PSA. Erleada may cause serious side effects, including heart or lung disease, stroke, or severe skin reactions, which can lead to death, falls, fractures, and seizure. Call your doctor right away and stop Erleada if you have chest pain, shortness of breath, numbness, weakness, severe rash, peeling, sores, and seizure. Avoid settings where loss of consciousness may cause serious harm. Erleada can cause harm to or loss of an unborn baby. Use birth control during and for 3 months after Erleada. Common side effects were joint pain, rash, feeling very tired, high blood pressure, hot flash, diarrhea, and reduced appetite or weight.
Keep your everyday hero going. Ask his doctor if Erleada is right for him.
A good deal shouldn't make you choose. That's why Subway just dropped the price on all their subs. 20% off any sub, any size.
Wait, Subway did what? 20% off any sub, any size?
Yep. For a limited time, get 20% off any footlong or 20% off any 6-inch when you order in the app. Get 20% off your favorite sub at Subway while the deal is still on. Enjoy an MVP rewards for even more great deals.
I have a confession to make. I could have launched a mediocre spray years ago, but as an OBGYN, I took an oath to do no harm. And basing a spray deodorant on alcohol and butane, there had to be a better way. Lumi launched a spray. Lumi Spray is water-based, empowered by mandelic acid to lower the pH of your skin, stopping odor before it starts. With just one application, it's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours and be gentle on skin. Might be why 4 out of 5 doctors would recommend Lumi Whole Body Deodorant. This spray is only available at lumideo.com.
When you need brutal honesty, when you need answers first thing in the morning, you need your Morning Joe. Weekdays at 6, only on MSNBC.
Let's talk about the FBI now with Director Christopher Wray stepping down from his post next month. He announced that this week. Republicans are falling in line behind Kash Patel, President-elect Trump's pick to lead the Bureau. Patel was back on the Hill yesterday, meeting with Republican lawmakers. Here's what he had to say ahead of a meeting with Senator Ted Cruz of Texas.
All I can say is we've had a wonderful first week on the Hill, meeting with so many great senators, almost 20 of them. It has been a humbling process to receive their advice during the consent and advice process, and I'm looking forward to continuing that during the confirmation process as I learn every day as I go. And I'm thrilled to be President Trump's nominee for the director of the FBI. And I'm very excited to see Senator Ted Cruz, who is one of the most brilliant constitutional minds we have. Thank you.
You know, Jonathan Lemire, Kash Patel is viewed by many people as perhaps the most controversial of all President-elect Trump's choices here, and yet he seems to be publicly, anyway, getting the most broad support from Republicans. It seems, at least from the Republican side anyway, that he would breeze through if he could get all those votes there from the Republicans who've come out and spoken and supported his choice. What do you make of this dynamic? This is a guy, of course, who's called for the jailing of members of the press, jailing of opponents of Donald Trump, jailing of people he perceives to be part of the deep state. He had an enemies list at the back of his book. So arguably the most controversial of the choices, and yet drawing widespread support on the Hill the last couple of days.
Yeah, I was talking to a senior Hill aide yesterday who was very blunt. It's like, this pick right here, Kash Patel, more than Pete Hegseth, more than Tulsi Gabbard, maybe even more than Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that this pick, Kash Patel, is not only the most controversial, but the one that could change Americans' lives the most, because of if he's willing to use the tools of power in the FBI, you know, to go after the enemies list, one of which he put in the back of his book. Others are more, he's going to take his cues from Donald Trump, either directly or indirectly. This is someone who's going to use the power of the most important law enforcement body in the world, potentially, on American citizens, pressure campaigns for, and even arrests, as he has threatened lawmakers, journalists, others who he has deemed in opposition to the MAGA movement. And as so many people have said, Kash Patel really has no ideology of his own, per se, but rather simply channels whatever Donald Trump wants. So, Elise, it is striking, though, to Willie's point. We have heard senators, both publicly and privately, express reservations about Pete Hegseth, right? We knew Matt Gaetz that pick was in trouble right away. Some have said, well, Tulsi Gabbard, do we really want her to have the nation's secrets? I think next week the spotlight will turn a little bit to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But Kash Patel has flown under the radar. And my question to you is, there are some, obviously, Republicans, a number of Republicans, who do care about law and order, who do care about, you know, the norms of government and checking its investigative powers. Are they going to stand up against Kash Patel, who more than anyone, I think, symbolizes what Trump 2.0, retribution, is all about?
I don't think you can underestimate just how strong the anger is against the FBI by even the rank and file Republicans, what they see as the department's excesses over the past 8 years or so, really starting with, you know, Comey and his announcement about Hillary Clinton on the eve of the election was even an overstep, some Republicans feel. So I think that that's why Kash Patel, they see as someone to come in and clean up, and he might, you know, he might upset some apples in the barrel cart, but they're okay with it as long as there's radical reform. And you see that with so many of those nominees. They're willing to accept, like they are with Trump, that things are going to get broken, there could be chaos. But, you know, they feel that they have to address the underlying problems that their constituents are so angry about.
This reminds me that it could be like a 21st century version, an adaptation, an update of Pat Moynihan's 1993 essay on defining deviancy down. So Kash Patel is on the roster to be FBI director. And he's on the roster, he's batting third. Number one, Pete Hegseth. Senators walking around saying he's totally unqualified. We can't have him. We can't put him in charge of the